I had had my driver's license a total of 10 days, but I did get my permit when I was 15. So I'd been driving probably 2.5 years. I felt very comfortable behind the wheel, and he'd even tell me, he said, "I can't believe you've only had your license 10 days. You're such a good driver." But I got my license on his birthday. We'd look out and we'd see a car and I'd say, "Go get him, we're gonna catch him." And he in his little Civic, we'd hit 70 down some little windy road and we'd pull up behind him and we'd slow back down the speed limit. We didn't think anything of it. We'd be speeding for 30 seconds. And I guess not knowing the repercussions of what we were doing at the time, we could look at it and say, yeah, we can do that for this long. Nothing bad's gonna happen.
He wrestled, he played football, he was a jack of all trades. He was involved in the band, but his heart was in football. Josh wanted to be an orthodontist.
It was October and wrestling was getting ready to start up, and he said, "Ron, I think we need to wrestle." I said, "You want me and you to wrestle together against each other? So you're gonna kill me." He said, "No, we need to be on the wrestling team."
It was a normal day for me at work. We were having the carpet replaced. My husband was on the road, and he had paid Josh and Ron to move the furniture back after the carpet was done. Had the furniture moved, I sat down here in the living room. He and Ron and Madison, his sister, were in his bedroom, and they were in there cutting up.
He was always smiling. I don't think I ever saw him when he wasn't. I mean, we'd get in an argument, and like 5 seconds later, we'd be like, "That was stupid. Let's be best friends again."
When I first met Josh, he was honestly a little intimidating, size and whatnot. But once I really got to know Josh, I discovered him to be very loving, very caring, and very dedicated to whatever he chose to do.
I looked in and the gas gauge is on empty, so I said, "I'll get my son some gas, be a good dad." And as I got in the truck to drive up to the gas station a couple miles away, I noticed that the oil pressure was very low. Probably blowing some oil past the valves because he was speeding, he was pushing the engine too hard. So I called him and I said, "You've been driving the truck 10 whole days, and in 2 years I haven't burned a quart of oil, and in 10 days you've burned 3 quarts is what it took to fill it back up." And I said, "Something tells me you're speeding. And can't prove it, but if I catch you speeding, I'm going to take your license, I'm going to take the keys, and I'm going to hold on to them for a long period of time." "Oh, Dad, I'm not speeding." And I said, "All right, I'm going to let you slide on this one. First warning. There won't be a second." Probably shouldn't have gone with the first, I guess, huh?
Well, it had begun to get later, and I told them, I said, "I'm not going to cook, and I'm going to run to Subway and get some subs." And they had told me what they wanted. Ron wanted everything on his but the kitchen sink. It was kind of a joke between us.
I wanted a chicken BLT all the way, and she said, "All the way? If they got the kitchen sink, I want you to put it on that sandwich." And she started laughing, and she said, "Okay." And as soon as she left, we said, "You know what? We want to play some Xbox. Let's go get it." It was probably around 7. We got in the car and we sped over. We probably hit 75 on the way over, just so we could do it real quick so we could get back and have plenty of time to play Xbox. And he didn't even get out of the car. He had the seatbelt on, didn't move. I ran in, it was all in the box already. Picked it up, tossed it in the back seat, got back in, pulled up to the end of the driveway, and I thought, I think today I should go left. But I turned right anyway. Just the way I'd always driven, go to school, go to his house. But something told me to not go that way. And I went down Jordan Road the same speed I should have been. But I turned on Ridge, and I looked at him, and he looked at me, and he said, "Go, go, go." And I didn't think twice. I put it in first gear, and I started going. Started tacking out. I was about 4,000 RPM, and I went to second gear. And I was already at like 60, and I wasn't going to stop. I already had tunnel vision, and I was going to keep going. He was hollering, and we were having a good time. And I hit fourth gear, and I was doing 95 down that road. And he said, 110 and we'll stop, 110 and we'll slow down. As soon as I hit 110, I took my foot off the gas. And he said, "It's time to slow down. We've got that curve coming." I just tapped the brake right as we hit this little hill right in the middle of the road. And everything stopped.
We had tried to call Josh from Subway because I had forgot something about the sub. And he never did answer his phone. And tried to call the house phone, and he never answered the house phone. Tried to call Ron's phone. He never answered the phone. And I said, those boys are just cutting up, acting crazy, and they're not even paying attention to the phone. And I got a call that said that him and Ron had been in a really bad accident, and the only thing they knew was they were helivacking.
I remember 2 skips and looking at him and looking out my window and seeing trees. I thought we were both dead. And we were coming in at this angle. I hit this tree that's down right here, which is kind of what we established is what saved my life, just because it was a dead tree at the time. It took most of the impact and deadened it. I had one wheel on either side of this ditch, and I was sliding the whole length. And then I caught this next tree and spun and actually got sideways, where you can see the 2 tire marks on that pine tree over there where he was pulled from the car as it scraped the bottom. We came to a rest right up where that small pine tree is, right over here. I came to about 30 minutes later, regained consciousness, and I stepped up out of the windshield, where the windshield was, stepped onto the road. I didn't have any shoes on. I couldn't find my phone. Everything had been pulled out of my pockets. I couldn't find my friends until I had stepped out, and I yelled his name. I said, "Cuddles, where are you? I can't find you." And I didn't get a response.
When we got there, I saw Ron standing, and so I was relieved to see him standing, that he wasn't laying on the ground. And I asked where Josh was. He says he's there. And I looked over and I saw Josh.
And I had seen him, but I couldn't tell that that was actually him. I guess I had blocked it mentally, that that was my best friend in front of me.
He was laying face down in the ditch, and so I ran over to him to see it. I'm a nurse, and so I ran over to see if there was anything I could do. And I touched his body, and his body was completely cold.
About the time they got there, the ambulance was pulling up. And they loaded me in the back, and they started asking me questions, and I said, "Tell me about my friend. Is he okay?" And she wouldn't tell me. And I said, "I'm not answering another one of your questions until you tell me about my friend." And that's when she told me that he was dead.
Of course, when I arrived, the MedTrans helicopter was taking off from the scene with Ron in it.
I didn't want to remove myself from that spot. I wanted to stay there. Honestly, hoping if I stayed there long enough, I'd die too.
God gave me the strength to drive all the way from Greer. And when I turned the curve on Ridge Road, it looked like his city was lit up. The helicopter was gone. I jumped out of my car and went running. But they stopped me.
There was a lot of damage to that car. There was a lot of speed and a lot of energy involved in that car. With Josh being ejected from the car, the bottom of the car was, basically removed by a tree.
And I kept grabbing firemen and the EMS workers and begging them to tell me my baby wasn't dead.
When Josh left, he took a large portion of my daughter and my wife with him.
And they said, "Which one is he? There is a fatality." And I said, "The big guy, the big guy, the big guy."
I kept wanting to walk up towards the wreck, and the fireman would stop me. He said, "Please don't. For your own good, I'm asking not to." But I didn't know at the time that my grandson was laying right up, not too far from me. I didn't know that until they covered him up.
He always had that laugh and that big hug. And he would always aggravate me. And the other grandkids would always go to him and he would always give them strength. It doesn't get easier. You learn to cope. You learn to get up and put one foot in front of the other one. And you pray that God gives you the strength to make it through the day.
I know going that fast, I shouldn't have lived. I hit driver's side first into a pine tree and spun around and hit another tree, got airborne and scraped trees.
My first thoughts was I didn't see how anybody could have possibly survived the collision.
It was like 10 hours later. I walked into her front door to her whole family sitting there. The first person I saw was Madison, his younger sister, and I just gave her a hug because I didn't know what to say. I know she said my mom's in Josh's room, and I went in there and I gave her a hug, and we laid on his bed and we didn't say anything. We just cried and hugged each other. And we went over to the high school. And everybody was just in the hallways. No, there was no way anybody could do anything.
When I found out that they were both in a car accident, I didn't know what was going on, and when they said that Cuddles wasn't going to make it, the scariest part is were both of them going to be gone? Were two people that we were close to going to be taken?
I remember the day after everybody met up at the school and had a little prayer outside. It was just too tough. I just had to go home and I just tried to sleep it off for a couple days. But
when you come up the driveway, it's like you know something's missing. And you come in and then it's like you try not to think, you know, that your pretty much best friend used to live here, but he's gone now. But it's just hard. It makes me miss him really bad. I mean, I miss that guy so bad.
The morning that we were supposed to perform at Concert Festival, we all met in the band room, and it was a hard morning. But after everyone had a chance to console each other, we kind of left it up to the students whether or not they wanted to continue to go to South Point and perform or not. And with the exception of one student, everyone wanted to go perform. And I've never heard the Blue Ridge High School band play this way, and they've never played this way again. I've never heard them, previous or prior, play the way they played. They played with such emotion and passion, and you could tell it was for Josh.
I went through the next 3 months of school with everybody looking at me in the hallway every day, saying, "There's that guy that killed his best friend." I'd heard of people saying, you know, Ron should have died, not Cuddles.
I know that Ron would have never hurt my baby for anything in the world. But they were playing. I found out after Josh died, the day of his visitation, that there's a game that they play on Ridge Road, and it was called The Need for Speed. And my son held the record.
The next year was really difficult. I cried every day. Think about where he'd be right now, what we'd be doing. I graduated June 2nd, and I got a phone call from the Highway Patrol saying my bond hearing had been set for June 20th. I was placed in a holding cell for 12 hours with a bunch of other people that at that time I considered criminals. I didn't know any better. I was pretty scared through that, and they put me in handcuffs and ankle restraints and sat me out there, everybody to look at me. And then they brought me in front of the judge, and that was the first time I'd seen Marie in probably 6 months. She had just kind of stopped talking to me. Judge signs off on a bond and lets me out of my own recognizance. And before she lets us go, she asked Marie if there's anything else. She said, "I don't want him to be able to contact me." And that really hurt me. June of 2011, I got a letter in the mail that said my court date was set. All I could do was write a letter of apology. I was gonna plead guilty. I'd been driving, I did it. I read my letter, and I told Marie 10 times that I was sorry, that if I could change it, that if I could take his place. And the judge said, "That was a good letter, but I still think you need to serve some jail time." I went to jail for 45 days. I get placed on house arrest for a year. Get off on August 2nd. When I get off, I'm gonna go serve 3 years of probation.
The older children understood what the consequences. The two younger ones, who were just 4 and 7 at the time, that was real difficult to explain, what happened about the accident. And when Ronnie went to jail, they had a hard time understanding why he had to go to jail. Paul, who was 7 at the time, he was very angry with the judge because he's like, "Well, why did they send Ronnie to jail? It was just an accident." I said, "Yes, but somebody lost their life, honey." I said, "Somebody that you loved." He says, "Well, yeah, I did love Cuddles." I said, "Ronnie has to pay, there's a consequence to be paid for that action."
He gets to go to school if he's enrolled, and he's not because he's working full time. He gets to go to work, and he gets to go to church. I can't say, "Hey, Ron, let's go hit some golf balls. Hey, Ron, let's go hunting. Hey, Ron, let's go fishing. Hey, Ron, let's do anything." And then you get the joy of going down to the jail to visit your child. Fantastic experience. Smells. You get to talk to him through glass on a phone that someone else has been talking on. And then after a little while, you get to go see him in person in a jumpsuit and flip-flops, sitting at a table with other men with tattoos and whatever. Anybody who thinks that this doesn't affect everybody is full of themselves.
The thrill of the actual speeding maybe lasted 10 seconds. And then it was all adrenaline, and that 10 seconds wasn't worth my best friend's life. And now the way it's going to affect my life from here on out, none of it was worth that.
I would say initially after the accident, most people were extremely kind. We had a real outpouring of love from the community. But as time went on, there were some changes in the community. There were things that people would tell us that other people were saying about Ron, that he wasn't sorry because Ronnie was trying to get his life under control and trying to work and trying to do whatever he could do, that somehow that was as though he didn't remember or didn't have guilt.
I drive past it on a daily basis. Drive by it every day on the way to school, and I have to think how this mile stretch of road changed my life. Everybody that's in your car you have their life in your hands. And I wasn't thinking about that. I was 17.
I know since Josh has died, I've researched and found out why Alive at 25 is called Alive at 25. Because until the age of 25, a teenager's brain is not completely developed to be able to rationalize between danger and consequences. And they don't think it can happen to them. Well, I guarantee you my son didn't think it could happen to him either, but it did. It did within a split second. And I would hate for people to have to walk in my shoes because it's a very hurtful place to be. I would hate other families to have to go through what me and my family's been through.
I no longer had my other half. I knew life was going to be so different without him.
I just want Ron to know that I totally forgive him. I mean, I really do forgive you. It could have very well been reversed. But I know why God took my son. Because Josh was ready. And he left you here for a reason. It's very hard for me. Very hard for me. But I can't imagine what you go through every day either. I hate that you have to walk in the shoes that you do. It's only by God's grace that I'm able to be here today. God's given me a lot of strength, but sometimes I feel so weak. But He never fails me nor forsakes me. But I do forgive you, Roy. And I do love you. And I'm sorry that you have to go what you have to go through.